All right, another West Side electronic music video, and today we're going to talk about audio and how to use buses appropriately. All right, so let's review a little bit. There's two ways you can get audio into your project. You can go ahead and import it. And there it is. Zoom in. Good. And let's listen to it.
Continuous, soft, and relaxing.
Brilliant. All right, so that's one way. The other way is to just drag it in.
Continuous, soft, and relaxing.
Okay, so those are review. And one thing I want to show you that also is probably review is our media browser. So this is also a place where you can import an audio file as well. But this is basically where all of our audio lives, and it tells you a lot about the actual integrity of the audio, where it's been edited. You can actually listen to it.
Continuous, soft, and relaxing.
You can scrub through it.
And relaxing, and relaxing.
And when you're done, you can drag it over. All right, so those are three ways to get audio in and out. Now let's look at a couple ways that we can actually edit this audio. All right, well, first of all, if I go to the scissors, this is where you can get the audio editing window. And if yours doesn't look like this, it might not have these two tabs. And if it doesn't, then you have to do one more thing, which is Logic, Preferences, and Advanced Tools. And you just want to click on Show Advanced Tools and all these options, especially the audio, where this enables different advanced audio functions. So once you've done that, if you go back, you can either double click on this track or hit the scissor, or you can hit the letter W. All three of those ways will get you to the audio editor. And you'll see there's two views. There's track view, which is identical to our arrangement windows track. And then there's file view. Okay. File view is essentially, looks like a wave editor. It's a lot like Audacity, in fact. But here's one difference, is that anything you do in this window will change the original file. And that's something that we call destructive audio.
Destructive audio editing.
Ooh, that sounds scary. Well, it is. Unless you're prepared to edit your originals and have them forever be the same, or forever be what you've edited them, then don't do this option. But I'm going to show you a little bit about how to use it and safer ways to use it than just importing your audio, as well as times where you can't use it at all. And so you'll see, for example, if I select this little last bit of the audio file and I want to go and cut it, I go up to Edit, Cut is grayed out. Like, that's weird. Let's go to Functions. Well, they're all grayed out. Well, why are they grayed out? Well, let's look. We always want to check the permissions of our file. This is the file we're working on, and if we hit Command-I, we get our permissions at the bottom, and you'll notice it says read only. So this should say read and write. So we could change it here. That's one way to do it. But unless you have permission to do that, it might make you type in a password. If it does that, you can import it into Audacity and then just export it again. And then you should get this version, which is what I made, doing that. And it should say read and write. Okay, so now we have permission to go ahead and edit it. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and delete this. We'll pretend we didn't change it. Now this is the one with actual permission. Okay, so now we double click on it. There's our editor. And let's select the same area. And now look, cut, copy, delete. all the functions are there. We can go ahead and destroy our audio. But before we do that, what's the smartest thing to do? Well, Logic knows that it's destructive in this sense. So it gives you some options. You can create backups or copies. Honestly, I wouldn't even do that. I don't trust Logic. So what I do is just I go to the Finder where my actual audio file is, and I'll make a copy. Or I'll just hit Command D, which is a duplicate. And there you go. Now we have the copy. So whatever I do with this, I always have a copy. Now, if you were to use backups, you can sometimes revert to backups right in Logic. And in fact, honestly, if you're going to do anything crazy with audio editing, especially with functions like this here, I would just use Audacity, which is why it's so great that Audacity is free. But hey, this is a Logic video, so let's talk about Logic. Great. So let's select everything and let's just try something. We're going to try to reverse it. Oh my gosh. What have we done? Well, let's check the original. Did it actually destroy it? No! It's been destroyed. It has.
Destructive audio editing.
Be afraid, folks. It's scary. So it's always that way. Well, we could probably change it back.
Continuous soft and relaxing.
No harm, no foul. But you see the power of that particular function is very, very, very scary. Okay, let's try another option. Let's say we actually wanted to use a loop. Well, one thing we know about audio loops in Logic, or the Logic loops, is that they don't let you change them. Okay, let's try that one. It's already going to say, hey, you don't have sufficient privileges, so you lose. Well, all right. Let's go ahead and check it out. What's going on here, Logic? All right. So if we double click on it, there's our editor. Let's just say we wanted to delete like the last half of the beat, whatever that might be. Well, it's not going to let you do anything. Again, you have no privileges. So what can you do? Well, you can't actually go into Logic's folder and change the privileges. And you can perhaps make a copy, but if you're using a student computer, then you don't have access to that folder probably either. So we can do something else where we right click, control click in Apple, and we get a menu. And it allows us to actually export this particular track that we have selected, or that, in fact, not even that track, that particular part of the track, that file within the track, as an audio file. And it will ask you, where do you want to save it? Well, to the desktop. I'm actually going to change its name so it doesn't look so much like a loop. And make sure it's consistent with your other audio files. If they're all 24, make sure it's 24. Or if they're all AIF, make sure they're AIF, just to keep everything the same. Hit save, and there you go. Let's go to our desktop, and there it is. Great. So now, if we just delete this, we can change our track name, and we will drag it in. Perfect. We can now work with this audio, and we have all of our functions, so we can reverse it.
Continuous soft and relaxing.
Let's reverse that back. Okay. If we were going to do anything destructive, what would we do? Well, we would just hit Command D and make a copy. That way we always know the copy is clean when we've edited this one. All right. Great. So now, I'm going to mute that. Let's look a little bit in this interface here. This is somewhat of like a little program in the program. We still have tools, although we have an abridged set of tools, right? We don't have the same set as we do in the arrangement window. But these tools are separate from these tools up here. So if you change these tools, so you want to add the fade tool, these tools stay the same. It also lets you audition parts of a file that are different from auditioning in this particular region. This region only auditions with the playhead.
Continuous soft and relaxing.
Well, if I select a region, I can hit the what's called PreListen,
Sync, sync, sync.
and you can get some detailed listening of a particular part of your track.
Dim relax. Dim relax.
So if you wanted to, you can also loop it by clicking the loop button,
Dim relax. Dim relax. Dim relax. Dim relax. Dim relax. Dim relax. Dim.
which gives you a lot of information about how it might be used in a loop. Here are the actual sample ranges that you've selected. Okay, so these are essentially, if you're going to count the number of samples, this would be the number that you selected from where. And it does tend to go from, where you started, and I believe the number, well, what does that say? It just says info display. Okay, well, this is just more detailed tick and sample information. And that might be useful if you wanted to know exactly where to edit something. Then over here we have some basic menu functions. And this is essentially what we call the audio editing menu, as opposed to our logic menu and then our arrangement window menu. Okay, so we have a lot of options. Let's just now finally commit to a reverse. There we go. Okay, so let's just say though, after I've warned you 1,000 times about destructive editing, well, how should we be editing? Well, let's just, there we go. Stretch this out. Well, the best way to edit audio is probably, unless you want to do specific things like reverse and tempo and time shifting and all that, you should just do it in the arrangement window. And if you go down to the lower right corner, you get this little double arrow. If you click and you drag that, you can see you change the size of the file. Essentially, you change where it's reading to and from. You can do that from the beginning as well. And you can also make copies of that. Holding down Alt, click and drag, you now can make copies of that particular section. And each copy, contains the entire file. It didn't go anywhere. It has not been destroyed. So you can see sort of the difference. Destructive editing makes it so that the program doesn't have to make a copy. So it just changes the original. Whereas this type of editing, it makes a copy, and therefore you always have it available if you need it. And since we have so much RAM, so much memory nowadays, we don't have to worry about it. We can go ahead and just use non-destructive editing. Unless you want to do something like reverse, then you have to use destructive editing. Okay, so there you go. Now you can also, if you wanted to be a little quicker about things, you can just split your files. Let's say you want to split it in the middle or so. Move the playhead there, and you go to your edit and split. You can split things at the playhead into another copy. So now we have two copies. There you go. And look, they're still there. Let's just say you made a horrible mistake. You want to try to join them. We'll select both. And they're friends again. Okay, so those are a few ways that you can edit audio. Now, another way that you can apply edits to your audio is that you may want to add little fades at the beginning and the end. So we have a fade tool in Logic. It's very handy. Select that. Remember, this is the command click tool. We hit command, click, and then we're actually going to drag to the end of the file. And there we have our fade. And we can change its shape. We can do it at the beginning of the file. There we go. Change its shape. Okay, now be wary. These are different than when you use automation. Okay, automation, you can choose the volume, right? And you could create a fade in automation like that. And in fact, the question is kind of always, which is better? And it's hard to know exactly how Logic is applying this information. But either way, it's probably faster and requires less processing time to use automation than to use these fades here. But with a few tracks, if you just want to add a little fade in the beginning and the end, if there's a little clip or something there, it's perfectly fine. I just wouldn't do it on like 64 tracks or something like that. I would probably use automation for that. All right, so we have all this. This is very fascinating. Let's go ahead and I'm going to delete this track. And in Logic, you have to do it twice. And now let's say we have like 5 tracks, and we want them all to have the same reverb, and in fact different from another set of tracks. So that's when we use busing. Busing takes place in our mixer. So that's this little icon here, or you can hit X. So the shortcut for the audio is W, and the shortcut for the mixer is X. And we can go to the options, and we can create an auxiliary channel strip. And what it does is it created what's called an aux strip. Essentially, it's a strip that we're going to use as a bus. So I'm going to name it something unique, which is, in this case, reverb. Notice how it starts all the way down. That's actually a good thing so that you don't potentially blow your ears. I just hold down Alt and I click on the fader. It goes straight to 0. Now we're just going to do the input. You can kind of hear my voice might have changed. We need to change that to a bus input. So we're just going to call it bus 1. Now that should be gone. There it is. Great. So now on our track, we want to actually set it up to send its signal to bus 1. And then click on this little knob here, which basically applies the amount of that signal that goes into the reverb channel, this auxiliary channel, now known as a bus. And anything we do to the bus, like let's just say we add reverb. Let's add bright, long reverb. Anything we do that will now apply to this channel. Okay, and if we add in a new file, applies to that one too, as long as we set it up that way. So notice I can bring it out. Now it's dry. And now it's wet. So that's how we mix that between the wet and the dry. Okay. Great. So I'm going to delete this again. Make me do it twice. All right. So now let's just say we want to add. So we actually like that. Let's bounce it as its own file. Okay, make sure it ends properly and include the audio tail. That's very important. Bounce, and we'll call it just special. Yeah, there we go. And we should get that reverb on there. Okay, so notice how even though it was on a bus, it bounced it all together. Let's just drag that in. And let's mute this one now. And let's try, actually, something a little fun here. Let's try to reverse that and see what we get. There we go. There we go.
Continuous soft and relaxing.
Ooh, cool. It's a special effect known as reverse reverb. And even if we didn't like that long silence in the beginning, we can edit it out. And we can actually add in a little bit of a fade.
Continuous soft and relaxing.
And, well, we can add that to the bus as well. And now we can add reverb to our reverse reverb. And you thought that was a paradox. Well, it's not.
Continuous soft and relaxing.
Ooh. There you go, folks. Audio, destructive audio, and busing. This should make your lives much easier and much more fun. Thank you for listening to Westside.